Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve McAllister, and this is the Gaming News Canada show presented by Bede Gaming. Given the overwhelming popularity of online casino games, as we've seen in Ontario's highly competitive regulated gambling industry, it feels at times as if the sportsbook business has moved into the rearview mirror. But then we're reminded about the passion around betting on sports, and that's especially the case less than 30 days before the World Cup of Soccer men's tournament comes to Canada for the first time. And in a period on the sports calendar highlighted by the NHL and NBA playoffs, the French Open Grand Slam tennis tournament underway now, last weekend's Montreal Grand Prix Formula One race, and golf's US Open and the RBC Canadian Open right around the corner. To borrow a bit of hockey parlance, if the Canadian gaming industry had a Conn Smythe trophy up for grabs, Kambi would be a leading contender in 2026. The global sports betting supplier has secured a hat trick of partnerships across the Great White North, first with OLG, and then last month being selected by the British Columbia Lottery Corporation and the Atlantic Lottery Corporation to be their sportsbook technology and services supplier. So, after a very lengthy hiatus from this podcast, we welcome back the Chief Commercial Officer of Kambi, Sarah Robertson. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks. It's very nice to be back and good to speak to you, Steve.
Hey, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you're up to at Kambi right now, I first have to ask you about the Stanley Cup playoffs. You know, you spent almost 8 years in Montreal with PaySafe at the beginning of your career, and I just wondered, does that make you a Canadiens fan?
I am a Canadiens fan. Yeah, you become a Canadiens fan when you live in Montreal. And yeah, we used to go to the games quite frequently. I don't watch as much hockey anymore though, because it's on so late in the evening here, being based in the UK. But everyone in my family are big Habs fans as well, so it's kind of born and bred.
Yeah, that's fine. I know you're in the UK these days, and I'm sure there's a piece of you that wishes you were still in Montreal. And it just it's been such a great vibe around the city, and I always tell people I think Montreal's one of my favorite, if not favorite, cities in the world, just because there is a true joie de vivre around that city.
Yeah, there is. I really loved my time in Montreal. It was sad to leave. The one thing I don't miss, though, is the very cold winters. So that I can leave behind.
Yes.
I still go back. Obviously, my family's in Canada, so we still spend a lot of time there in the summers and stuff.
Hey, I want to start, Sarah. And again, I mentioned off the top the three partnerships now with OLG, BCLC, and Atlantic Lottery. How many clients does Kambi have in Canada now?
That is a very good question. We have several clients that are North American focused that work in regulated Ontario. But obviously our kind of big relationships now are the lotteries. We're really proud of the new partnerships that we've just formalized with BCLC and ALC. And that sees us powering 7 of the 10 provinces. So quite a nice footprint. And again, I think we've been really focused on both of that process, but also readying ourselves for ensuring that we have a really Canada-focused product as well. We've done a lot on our hockey product in the last year to improve coverage, combinability. We've got a market-leading bet builder now, and that's been done through collaboration with OLG and speaking with the Canadian Lottery. So really excited to get launched with ALC and BCLC when ready. And yeah, I think Canada's become a very important footprint for Kambi.
You know, it's funny. It's not that there aren't challenges in the Canadian gaming industry right now. You know, we see what's going on with the continuing controversy around sports betting advertising, and I think there's about a bit of nervousness around prediction markets, even though that's a much bigger controversy in the U.S. But it does feel, in some respects, that there's a bit of stability with the Canadian gambling industry, and I think whether you're an operator or a company such as Kambi, you kind of know what the rules and regulations are, and you kind of know the landscape when you come into this country to operate in this industry today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Kambi works in only regulated markets, and Canada being kind of a very mature betting market because the lotteries have been operating for such a long time, right? And they're very well-established, mature organizations. So it was a really good fit for us. We've done a lot of work in the last few years and working with more and more lotteries in that space. We've got a very secure, compliant service. We take regulation very, very seriously. So I think it was a great time for us to pitch for these lotteries. Obviously, as a Canadian, I'm very proud to have the opportunity to do that. And we're really excited to get moving. But yes, I think our background as with our focus of working only in regulated markets really has helped us prepare for this, because as I mentioned, I think this is a long process to be selected by the ALC and BCLC lotteries. But it was fundamentally a competitive process based on your products and what you can provide to them. And we've done a lot of work at Kambi in developing our product, as I mentioned, over the recent years, not only on the product level, but on a regulatory and compliance level. We have regulatory compliance built within the platform of our sportsbook so that we can adhere very quickly and adapt very quickly to different regulations across different provinces, different states, different countries, globally. So that really helps us be prepared when we enter a new province or jurisdiction.
Sarah, with you mentioned earlier about being in I think relationships in 7 provinces now, or with the Provincial Lottery and Gaming Corporation. I just wonder if that's a deliberate effort on Kambi's part, or if that was a business strategy, taking a look at what's going on in this country and identifying this as a good place to be.
Yeah, I mean, we we knew that. Obviously, we had our recent partnership with OLG. The Canadian lotteries, as mentioned, are huge gaming companies within the context of North America. So they've always been an important target for us to focus on. I think the timing was really, really good that the RFP was launched at a time where we have a very mature product that can handle kind of being developed, like I said, to be very Canadian facing. We also have a very mature retail product. All of the Canadian lotteries have quite expansive retail networks, so they needed a supplier that could support both their online business with a competitive product, as well as their retail business, and give them a kind of seamless integration there. And our work in North America since the repeal of PASA has actually really made us very well suited and well prepared for those opportunities.
Yeah, I don't expect you to fully pull back the curtain on this next question, but I know, when we had the launch of the open regulated market in Ontario back in April 2022. I think one of the major storylines was that OLG and people like Dave Pridmore and Andrew Darley and Duncan Hannay, they've been quite open in saying that the opening of this competitive market was really the proverbial kick in the derriere for OLG to be better with this digital product. And everything that you hear talking to people across the industry is that they've done that. I just wonder, it would indicate to me that Kambi coming on board to help with Proline and Proline Plus, that is another step in that direction of continuing to evolve and improve. Is that the case? And that was kind of the thought process behind OLG bringing Kambi on board?
Yeah, I think so. We went through a novation process there. Their previous supplier was exiting. Kambi took over that contract. I think, though, you are correct in that, a lot of what we are talking about with OLG today as part of our partnership is making sure that we have a super hyper localized competitive product. They operate in one of the most competitive markets in all of North America, right? Ontario, I think, arguably is one of the if not the most competitive market. So one of the points around our partnership is making sure that we have kind of that best of breed product across all of their major sports, working with them to collaborate on our roadmap, but making sure that we're kind of addressing their unique needs to stand out in that market. And like you said, I think a big piece of the strategy of our partnership will be about, making sure that they have a super, super competitive product against those big B2Cs that operate in that space. I would also say, like I said, Kambi has made quite a lot of advancements in our North American product in recent years, specifically around hockey. We are a Scandinavian company, so we have that heritage, which is quite nice. But with our advancements in our AI trading platform and our advancements in our product, we've been able to really focus on developing, like I said, our hockey product. So it's really kind of market leading now in the space with a huge amount of combinability, player props, and combinability across both pre-match and live. So we think that's going to be a really nice USP for OLG comparatively to others in this space. I would also say that with OLG, we obviously undertook a very large project to launch with them across their 10,000 point of sale locations. We've done that. We launched both the online and the retail product together. So now they also have a very nice cohesive product across both channels as well, which is important, I think.
You mentioned the hyper localization. I just wonder, Sarah, like what else are there other things that make the work that you're doing with OLG and the work you will be doing with BCLC and Atlantic Lottery, are there different unique pieces to those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think each lottery works they work in different markets, right? So they have different requirements when it comes to localization. One of the benefits of the Kambi product and our scale is that we can offer localization to each of our partners. We work with many different partners across 60 jurisdictions. So we need to be really good in Ontario. We need to be really good in Colombia. We need to be really good in Sweden. So we've baked that into the service that we give. So we have a very strong global sports product, but then we can scale up in certain areas that are around specific leagues, around specific coverage in different provinces. So we can do that. We also have the capability of where the lotteries can come to us and price up specific events and things like that. So there's lots of different ways that we can localize. We work really closely with our partners on our roadmap as well, like in the lead up to the World Cup, as you mentioned at the top of our discussion. This is a super exciting World Cup being played across the Americas. We're expecting a huge amount of engagement because of that, right? We think it's going to really kind of be a big event. So we've done a lot of work with our partners to define what we're launching for the World Cup. So we're launching quite a few new promotional features in our platform that are being launched now, right? So that everyone can package them up for the World Cup, including AC insurance and a few other kind of nice bonus features that are well suited for soccer, as well as scaling up with lots of nice player specific related markets and things like that. So we're really excited to work with our partners in the lead up to that to make sure that they have what they need to have a successful World Cup.
Yeah, it feels to me that it's also a pretty neat acquisition opportunity, new customers for these operators, because we know there is obviously a very sophisticated soccer fan base in this country that's been around for an awful long time, but especially with the event taking place in Canada playing in the tournament, I think you are going to get new soccer fans, or people are going to have an interest in soccer who are bettors, who probably this will be the first time they bet in the World Cup.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be it'll be really interesting to see kind of just the volume that comes from having the World Cup in North America. I think there'll be a new level of engagement, right, from North Americans. So we are expecting it to be really exciting.
How much of a challenge is this, Sarah? Like, again, Kambi operates in different countries. So I know there are some similarities in product, but at the same time, I'm thinking you do have to work with operators in different countries where you are going to have to provide we'll see a different product in Scandinavia than we're going to see in Ontario, correct?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like we work with both ATG and Svenska Spel, who are two state-run operators, kind of not that dissimilar to the lotteries in Sweden. Of course, their strategy around the World Cup will be very different than the Canadian strategy around the World Cup. And not only can we, talk about mention what I was talking about before, like making sure we have a really strong offering and all these player related markets, but we also give our operators tools so that they can set up specific campaigns themselves. They can adjust prices and paybacks themselves, so they can kind of really define what their strategy looks like. And that's without kind of us having to do it for them. That's part of the system that they can manipulate and adjust according to their own strategy. We believe that although we run the product, right, like it's a Kambi product, no two customers utilizing that Kambi product should have the exact same strategy, right? OLG has a very different strategy to Svenska Spel, and we need to give each of our operators the tools to be able to differentiate and stand out and compete in their markets.
You mentioned, I think you mentioned a few minutes ago, artificial intelligence, and I just wonder how much of an impact has that had on Kambi so far, and how much, if you can look into your crystal ball, how much of a role is AI going to play moving forward?
We at Kambi have been working with AI for several years. We actually, the last World Cup, so 4 years ago now, was when we launched our new AI-powered trading platform. So you can imagine we've been iterating and building out capabilities since then. So I think we're actually quite advanced in this space. We have transitioned more and more of how we produce our offering via this AI engine, which is automating a lot more of the trading flow. Obviously, there's still traders that are managing the AI. We're not just producing prices using AI. But it is a big core part of our product strategy over the next several years, and not just for efficiency and automation gains. It's for being able to create a more engaging product. As you can imagine, over the last several years, with the rise of bet builders and the complexity of pricing up player-specific markets and things like that, the complexity of running a sportsbook has increased kind of tenfold, if not more. And having this automation that can price and correlate in real time is really critical for being able to produce all the stuff I was talking about, like the localized offering, the being able to scale up quickly when you enter a new market. That AI piece really helps us do that. Outside of trading, we're also looking at and implementing AI across many areas of our business to gain efficiencies and to work smarter as we are trying to do more and more and move faster and faster, because it's what most of the industry is doing.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can say about this, but it does feel to me that especially in this industry where data is moving at lightning pace and it's innovating so much, that I think for people that assume as AI is going to mean massive job losses, I think there will be a balance there, because you are going to need AI to keep up with the data to some extent, but you're also going to need human boots on the ground to put those processes in place, right?
We, like what I mentioned with AI and trading, that doesn't mean we're replacing our trading operational teams just with AI. Like, you need now specialist skill sets to be, these highly skilled traders that sit on top of that automation and add that extra layer to that complexity. We still fundamentally believe in automation bundled with human capital, for sure.
Would you get, for a young person, maybe someone who's in a math program at the University of Waterloo, who's in an engineering program, like, would you have advice for someone who wants to get in this industry, and how different would that advice be than you might have given them 5 or 6 years ago?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I always advocate for this industry. I've worked in gaming now my whole career, as you mentioned, with Income Access PaySafe when I was in Montreal, and now at Kambi for several years. I think the gaming industry, and specifically sports betting, is such an interesting space. As you mentioned, I think in our industry, we're actually so advanced in so many areas. So if I was talking to engineers at Waterloo, I would say this is a really fun industry to get involved in. We've got a really great engineering team at Kambi who are, they understand the product. They're not just engineers looking at code. They're really understanding, kind of looking at what the business needs too. So I think that is something that I would definitely advocate for or recommend as a great industry. I think in engineering, the landscape is changing so much with AI. I think, again, finding a clearly defined skill set will be important, but keeping on top of the technology, I think, is probably going to be the most important thing too, because you can see how quickly things are changing. The rate of change just keeps accelerating, really.
Is your iGaming platform ready for market expansion? Bede Gaming is ready to support your needs across jurisdictions with its SOC 2 compliant platform, scalable multi-tenant infrastructure, and unlimited configurability. Book a meeting with Bede's team and future-proof your growth plan. Just going back quickly to the partnership with the Lottery and Gaming Corporations here in Canada, I just wonder if you've seen any trends. Like, again, we know that in Canada, the Stanley Cup playoffs are always going to be popular. Of course, the World Cup's going to be huge this summer, and there's certain sports, pardon the bad pun, but it's a safe bet that they're going to be attractive to customers. I just wonder, are you seeing any sports? Like I always, when we started Parlay, we celebrated our 5th anniversary 2 weeks ago, and I almost since day one I highlighted with the partners that cricket was a sport. I thought that we needed to be invested in at some point, and we've seen the growth of rugby both in the men's and women's side in this country. I wonder, have you seen yourself some sports that maybe is a bit of a blind spot for operators that you might put on the radar of someone like an Andrew Darley or Dave Pridmore at OLG?
I mean, rugby and cricket are both two incredibly important sports, as you've seen the rise in popularity in both. I think that you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, what we're finding is as the industry globalizes, right, and so does kind of customers are like, it's a global economy, right? So we see more and more, like we didn't even anticipate soccer would be that popular in North America when we first entered the US, right? And it's a very big, important sport. And we can see that based on where the World Cup is being hosted. So I think, like I said, it's a global economy. So what we kind of make sure that we are doing is having a really strong global offering. So when you partner with Kambi, you don't just, have, if you're a Canadian operator, you just have a Canadian offering. You get the full Kambi portfolio, right? Which gives you the 24/7 coverage, which gives you anything that anyone could be engaged in. It's hugely competitive because it's got to be competitive in Canada. It's got to be competitive in the US. It's got to be competitive in Europe. It's got to be competitive in South America, right? Because we have local leaders in each of those markets. So that gives you a nice global coverage for your sportsbook.
I want to ask you, this, even though it's operators that are dealing with this and places like the Canadian Gaming Association, Kambi is a stakeholder in this industry. And, I know you've read a lot of controversy around prop betting, live betting. We've seen lawmakers in the U.S. propose bills to limit or eliminate prop betting. We've seen a lot of that around U.S. college sports in particular. Does Kambi have a position on that, Sarah, or what is your role in that conversation?
Yeah, no, we do have a big role. We are partnered with several integrity monitoring organizations. We are kind of have been partnered with many of them for many, many years, and we actively report where we identify integrity issues. Sportsbook control and integrity is a big part of what we do. Again, we work in highly regulated markets. That's kind of one of the things that we specialize in, as you can imagine, and sportsbook integrity is a big part of that, right? So we have a dedicated team that focuses on this at Kambi. We proactively report, and we take a lot of pride actually in that piece. So, I think you mentioned kind of prop betting and live betting in college. I mean, I think that all comes down to how you're packaging and protecting your product and the security that you're putting in place. And I think, again, that's something that Kambi takes really seriously with our service that we give.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously it's become, we've seen it's a very important part of the business where we know sports fans love to make prop bets, and not to understate that there can be problem gambling, but at the same time, from an entertainment value, I mean, I know me myself as a casual bettor. I mean, if I see Austin Matthews score a goal in the first minute of the Leafs game, I'll put $2 down or $5 on him to get a second goal. And I think there's a lot of enjoyment that comes from doing that. And at the end of the day, the operators are running a business, and the proof's in the pudding that prop betting is extremely popular.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like as sports stars become, these big celebrity figures, people are following the player, not necessarily the team often. So we've seen such a big rise in player prop betting. It's, shots on targets now becoming one of the most popular types of betting market on our network globally, right? And that was just not the case 7-8 years ago. So it's that the behavior of the bettors has changed quite significantly over the last few years. And again, that's with the rise of bet builders, the rise of player prop markets. It's the consumer has changed the way they engage with the sportsbook. And I think that will continue to evolve, like as we can do more things on demand and you consume on demand now, the players will want to have that expectation with their sportsbook. They want to be served the right thing that they want to bet on at the right time. And I think all of the technology suppliers will need to have to keep pace to that change to make sure they have an engaging product.
Yeah, no, I think of the NHL, and I think right now I don't think that block shots are a prop bet offering, and I think that's, you know, we see analytics in the NHL becoming more and more prevalent, and I could see those offerings continue to innovate, right?
Yeah. Yeah, as the data become, that's because that's been a constraint, right, on a lot of this,
right,
up until quite recently, that the data was not good enough, right? You didn't have the granularity in data, but year on year, the data is getting better, right? So, and if you have good, consistent data around some of this stuff, yes, then you can price it up and create a markup.
And I think that really applies to women's sports, Sarah, where we've seen really the only established pro women's sport in North America is the WNBA. And I think as we see the PWHL mature, we have a Northern Super Soccer League in Canada now. And even curling, this is something I've spoken with Nick Sulsky on the podcast in the past. Curling is a sport that, even though it's popular, there wasn't a whole lot of data being collected. So as those sports recognize the importance of data, and we see the WHL mature, I think that's only gonna help attract bettors to women's sports.
Yeah, no, I agree. We did a lot of work on our WNBA offering last year because, like I said, like you just mentioned, the data is getting better, obviously, and the viewership is up quite a bit. So yeah, we've rolled out a huge expansion in our WNBA product last year, and probably will continue to do so on across other sports too.
Sarah, does Kambi taking a position on prediction markets in the U.S. and is there potentially business for Kambi in that space?
So obviously we're closely watching what's happening in this space. It's ever evolving. I think we work in regulated markets and in regulated jurisdictions across the globe, and we are working in laser focus on providing a regulated best of breed sportsbook. So we're not interested, and we've spoken about this publicly before, in moving into that prediction space. We will continue to monitor, but I don't think that our strategy is not to look around at all these adjacent verticals. As you know, Kambi doesn't work in casino. We're not going to work in predictions. We want to be laser focused on what we do, and we want to be best at what we do. And I think that strategy, which we've been consistent on for the last 15 years, has put us in the right trajectory, right? So I don't think we plan to change that now. We want to continue to develop and invest in a super hyper competitive sportsbook product.
Yeah, you mentioned that laser focus, and I said in the introduction. I mean, obviously in Ontario, we've seen about 85% of the handle in the market here is on the online gaming side. But I think it'd be easy for a company like Kambi to say, "Hey, we need to get on the online casino." But I think most times it's proven to be best when you kind of know your lane and you stay in it.
Yeah, I think, and like I said, we really want to make sure that we invest in our product in the right way. And I think when you have too many things that you're trying to do, if you are trying to be an operator or work in a casino, or you have a casino vertical, or you're wearing quite a few hats, and that dilutes your focus, right? So I think our strategy, which has been very consistent over the years, has done us well. We've been able to really focus on developing our roadmap, investing back into new product features, developing our AI trading, focusing on the right things that in the end provide our customers with a really good product that they can use to compete with the big DraftKings and FanDuels of the world, because that's what they're doing. They're laser focused on developing their products. So you want a supplier that's laser focused on doing that for their customers, their operator customers.
Are you seeing, I just wonder, with Kambi's business in other countries in the world, Sarah, are there any success stories, or is there anything you're seeing in other countries that maybe are unique compared to what you see in Canada?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last piece?
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just wonder if you, some of the work that Kambi is doing in other countries, if you're seeing something that really strikes you, or something that's cool, or just something that's a bit different than the work that the Kambi's doing with the lottery and gaming corporations and other operators in North America.
Yeah, I mean, I think our global footprint really lends itself to being able to take on these big projects like onboarding BCLC, ALC, OLG, because what we've done is, every time we enter a new regulation, we're building more into that core technology that understands how to adapt to regulations, right? So there's not often now a regulation where we haven't probably seen something similar to it at some point over the 60 different jurisdictions that we've looked at. And as I mentioned, I think where we have done really well, and what the feedback that we get is we are really good at adhering to regulations that sometimes have high barriers of entry, like working with in France or in Spain or Italy. These are markets that come with tough regulatory requirements, and we have an adaptable system that can adhere to that. OLG was a huge project for us, right? We were taking on a migration of an online and a retail sportsbook that had 10,000 point of sales locations, right? And the maturity of our product helped us be able to deliver that on time and get them launched earlier this year. And I think the delivery was really successful because of the maturity of our product and the teams that have been working across so many different jurisdictions with different challenges, et cetera.
How closely are you watching what's going on in Alberta and kind of the province's march towards the July 13th launch of its competitive marketplace?
Yeah, no, we've been watching very closely. Obviously, we have some of our customers are going to be preparing to enter that market. So we're going to be prepared to enter on day one. It's obviously a big regulation, a new regulation in North America. So I think a lot of people have their eyes on Alberta, and it'll be another very competitive market, it looks like. But our plan is to be ready for day one. That's typically the approach that we take with any new regulations, whether that be in North America, LATAM, et cetera, is that we will be ready when our partners want to launch in those markets, when those markets open. And that's, again, one of the benefits of Kambi, not to sound too salesy in that, but we have the scalability that we can support our customers as they enter multiple new markets and get them deployed on time. Because when a new market regulates, it's a bit of an arms race, right? If you're launching 3 weeks later, you're at a disadvantage. You need to be ready and with a compliant and an engaging product from day one.
And do you find, like, even though, I referenced the sports calendar earlier, so when, you've known forever that the World Cup's going to take place in June and July this year, but I just wonder, how much does a company like Kambi still have to be nimble, and are there conditions that change quickly where your production team has to be able to turn on a dime and get a product out?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, things change quickly. Like, look, we have a roadmap that's well planned, right? But then, something in a certain regulation will require a new technical development, or something in Latin America changes, or so there's a customer who needs something quite urgently. So the conditions across many jurisdictions change, and when you're in 60 plus jurisdictions, things come up that you need to be able to adapt quickly. So I think that's always something that we're doing, is looking at our roadmap and making sure that we're giving our customers what we need. But I think, when we're looking at our roadmap more holistically, we are planning well in advance, like knowing that the World Cup is coming. We're as I mentioned, we have several products that we're launching as well, with some UX and UI uplifts on our front end. Like, we've been working on that for several months, right, in preparation for this, to have that ready and packaged for our customers to leverage during the World Cup, given how important it's going to be.
Yeah, I wonder if it's almost like what, my previous experience as a sports journalist, where the World Cup next month, all of a sudden we see a country or a player that's all of a sudden become this superstar, and everybody's writing about it, everybody's talking about him. And now you're getting OLG wants to make sure that this player or this country is featured in their product every day. I mean, I'm thinking those are probably the kinds of pivots that you would make.
Oh yeah, and that's not like a big technology pivot for us, because we've got so much automation in the thing. If we get a request from a customer that says we want to have X amount more markets on this player because of the height, and we want to package some pre-canned bet builders around this, because that's all just kind of, that's business day to day for us. Of course, we can do that with the tools and the capabilities we have, because you're 100% correct. Depending on how the World Cup progresses across, the rounds, like, there will be things that we'll want to package in certain ways, right?
I find, Sarah, that if you're involved in this industry day to day, sometimes you get maybe a little too deep in the weeds, and you think, boy, it feels like I've been covering this industry for 35 years instead of 5 years, and you've been around the business a lot longer than I have. At the same time, once in a while, you do have to take a step back and you look at our country and the country you grew up in, where we have the regulated gambling is still quite new.
Yes.
You look at the U.S., where we still have, I think, only 6 or 7 states that have legal online gaming, and you still have California, Texas, and Florida that don't have legal online sports betting. And even you look, I think Denmark just recently became a regulated marketplace. Finland's coming on board in 2027. So, even though there are days where you feel like this thing's been going on forever and we're on we're a hamster on the wheel, for the most part, this is still a very immature industry, correct?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, North American regulated gaming in North America. I mean, save for obviously there's the established lottery business in Canada who have been operating sports betting for quite some time, but across North America, the regulation is still quite new. We've seen a lot of change in quite a very few years, really. A lot of consolidation, a lot of entrants, exits, etc. So I think that's what makes it still really exciting, right? Like there's still lots to do. I think the change in consumer behavior has really, I think, it's positioned, hopefully, most suppliers and operators to start to think about, well, what does the sports bettor or customer of tomorrow really want from their product, right? And those are the things you need to be thinking about now to make sure that you're ahead in your strategy in a few years to come. Because again, yes, regulation is changing. More and more states are regulating, states and provinces are regulating, but also consumer behavior is changing quite quickly as well. Yeah.
Hey, Sarah, just 2 more questions. First one, I'm curious, you touched earlier on Canada being a diverse country, one of the most diverse countries in the world.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder if gaming operators don't take advantage of the fact that we have, we obviously have a very strong South Asian community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We have significant Chinese population in this country. We have a Latin America influences across the board. And I just wonder why more operators maybe haven't offered more languages with their product offering, and if you have those types of conversations with some of your clients.
No, yeah, that's a really good point. I think, and those are discussions that we've had with all of the lotteries, actually. I think we support over 30 different languages at Kambi. I think making sure that you support the languages of the different communities within your territories is really important, and making those available. That's something that the Kambi system can definitely support. You can, turn on languages where you need. It's also about language. It's also about making sure that you have a localized product, like, the cricket piece, the rugby piece. Some of these sports are really important. And when you have big South Asian populations, it's no surprise that cricket is so popular, right? So one of the things that Kambi, when working with our operators, is, like I said, we want to localize, and that's through language, front end, bonusing, features, and coverage.
Yeah, and then obviously, I mean, I should mention, in fairness to the operators, I mean, there are challenges around customer service, and it's not just as simple as
it's not just turn the language on.
Here's a Hindu sports language sports book for you. So I want to mention. Last question, and you mentioned before we hit the record button that you're doing a fair bit of traveling these days. I just wonder for you personally, where are you spending most of your time, and where are you putting most of your energy into your role these days?
Well, we've had a big I've been back and forth to Canada a lot. We've had a big focus on obviously the Canadian market with our recent partnerships, and we're obviously still very focused on North America. So yeah, spending a lot of time. Unfortunately, I live in the UK and I fly back and forth a lot, but I don't really mind going back to Canada. I'm actually going to be coming to Canada for holiday in a few weeks in late June. So looking forward to that.
Sarah Robertson is the Chief Commercial Officer at Kambi. Sarah, I think I owe you an apology. It's been way too long since we last had you on the podcast, but I appreciate your time, and thanks so much for doing this. And hopefully we don't wait so long before we get you
next
back on
time.
again.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks for having me. And it was really great to speak with you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. That's
Thank
it
you.
for this episode of the Gaming News Canada show presented by Bede Gaming. You can listen to this podcast on all of the various pod apps. You can also watch my conversation with Sarah on the Gaming News Canada YouTube channel. Again, we're so grateful to all of our listeners and viewers for supporting this podcast. And we will see everybody again very soon.
Thank you.